Are you looking to improve your vertical jump and take your vertical up 2, 3, maybe even 6 inches over a course of 12 to 14 weeks? Well, I'm about to show you how to do it. Let's get into it. Hey there, Smitley here from Thirst Gym. And if you're looking to improve your vertical jump, I'm gonna lay out here the ultimate guide to help you do so. Majority of sports usually involve some kind of vertical component, and that means jumping vertically into the air. Basketball, volleyball, tennis, high jump. There's a lot of different sports that we can name. But the big thing is that a lot of time the success of those athletes in different sports involves about how high you can get off the ground, whether you go for a rebound, go for a block shot, go for a block. In volleyball, you're going to spike or hit the volleyball. These can all be valuable things, and the higher you can get off the ground, the more effective that you're going to be in your sport. There are several different ways to go about improving your vertical jump, and we're going to talk about those today in terms of how you can mix these together in the gym for your strength and conditioning program to take your vertical jump up 2 to 6 inches within the 12 to 14 week period that I'm going to lay out for you here today. Okay, let's dive into what you need to do to improve your vertical jump. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, there's not a simple catch-all answer because it depends upon what you need as an athlete. Different athletes need different approaches to help improve the vertical jump, and it's all gonna come down to based upon your build and the way that you produce force. I'm sure you've probably seen there's athletes that are super springy. They don't look like they're super strong. They may even look frail, but for whatever reason, they've got a ton of spring and bounce in their step. And then there's other athletes that might be slightly bigger or always look like they're locked onto the ground. For whatever reason, they have a hard time producing force to get off the ground, or they could also look the same degree that maybe there's athletes that when they land, they just continue to fall. They have no ability to create stiffness. So think about where you are as an athlete. What is your limiting factor? Do you have that springy type build, or are you somebody that's a little bit more planted on the ground? How you're going to address this in terms of your training program is going to help accelerate your ability to see these gains in your vertical jump. There are 4 ways that you're going to be able to improve your vertical jump. The first one is going to be something that's not talked about a lot. That's decreasing your body fat and decreasing the amount that you weigh. So by improving your body composition, whether it be staying the same weight and having more muscle and less fat, that can help improve your vertical jump because the muscle that you're gonna have should be able to help you produce more force and help you get higher. Essentially, your fat's not doing anything to aid you. Look at your body composition, say, could I afford to lose a couple pounds or increase my body mass in terms of muscle? And that might actually help you a little bit. The second part to that, though, is also just your total weight. If you happen to weigh 160 pounds and you drop down to 150 pounds, but you can stay the same strength that you were, you should be able to get off the ground higher because you're not having to push as much weight off the ground as possible. So first, look at your body weight, see is there a way that you can lose weight healthily and still maintain your performance. So if you're overweight, that would be a way to increase your vertical with just nutritional training aside. The other 3 are going to be from a performance perspective. The first one's going to be developing general strength. If you don't happen to have a quality amount of strength or a good motor behind your ability to create force, no matter how much plyometrics you do, your limiting factor is always going to be your general strength if you don't have it. Doesn't mean you have to be able to squat 500 or 600 pounds to have a massive vertical, as we see many pro athletes can't lift those kind of weights and they have massive 30, 40 inch verticals. But you gotta understand they do have a base level of strength that's letting them be able to do this. So my recommendation for most athletes, especially if we're looking at like the back squat, if you happen to be a high school athlete or older, my recommendation is if you're a guy, you need to be able to squat at least 1.5 times your body weight, and the closer you can get to 2, probably the better, but it's not a requirement. I think 1.5 is kind of sufficient. And if you're a female, I think 1 times your body weight is an ultimate good goal to have for in terms of general strength. Doesn't mean you can't improve these numbers to see that vertical go up, but I think those are base level numbers that you need to have established to be able to maximize the amount of plyometrics that you do just from a general force perspective and how much you can push into the ground and then actually leave the ground. The second aspect, we kind of already talked about this, is going to be general hypertrophy. Do you have the muscle tissue required in the right areas to help you jump high? That's going to be your quads, your glutes, and your hamstrings. If you're severely lacking in those muscle groups, same thing with the strength. As long as you continue to do plyometrics, you're probably still gonna have a limiting factor of improving your vertical. And so by adding just a little bit of muscle mass into those particular areas, again, that's gonna feed back into your strength, which is then gonna feed into your vertical jump. So look at your lower body. If you think you could add a little bit of size, I would also continue to look there. Hey, I need to do things to improve my hypertrophy to aid my strength gains that are then eventually gonna aid my plyometrics. And then the third thing is obviously gonna be implementing more plyometrics into your program. Your plyometrics do need to be force and direction-based specific. So if I just do nothing but broad jumps, my vertical jump might improve a little bit because I'm still training triple extension, which is extension of the hip, knee, and ankle joint, which is paramount to being able to jump high. However, if I make sure that I'm training more vertically in terms of the exercises that I'm choosing, the transfer that I'm gonna have to it improving my vertical jump is gonna be significantly better than if I don't do that. The other option here is that you can look at single leg and bilateral deficits in terms of, jumping off 2 legs and jumping off 1 leg and what your sport demands. Many sports, you are gonna have to be able to jump off 1 leg successfully just as well as 2. So you're still gonna wanna make sure that you're sprinkling both of those, especially if you're trying to dunk off 1 leg. If you're only doing bilateral based stuff, you're probably gonna see not as quickly as gains as you are if you start implementing some single leg plyometric based work into your training program. So look at the way your training program is developed now. Are you missing any strength, hypertrophy, or plyometric work? And that might give you a clue of where you can start to add some things in your training program to elevate your results. Okay, the next thing that we need to talk about here is your structure. And we've kind of briefly talked about this, but I'm gonna go into more depth. If you are a bigger athlete or you look like you're planted on the ground more, you don't have that springiness, what you're gonna be able to need to address is the springiness aspect of your training. You're gonna need to work on what's called tendon elasticity, the ability for your tendons to stretch and contract much faster. As a bigger person or somebody that's a little bit more landlocked, as we like to call it, you are good at generating a total amount of force just off the get-go, but you're not good at being able to reabsorb and reapply force and staying springy. So by being able to improve the stretch shortening cycle or the tendon elasticity within your lower body, that's going to help you become more springy, more bouncy, and also when you need to do repeated efforts of jumps, whether that be off of several individual leg-based running or verticaling off of each leg, or if you're looking at just doing multiple jumps back and forth, if you're a volleyball player and you're having to do two or three vertical jumps at 2 plays in a row, being able to stay springy is going to help you do that. And so your plyometric program should involve more springy-based looking activities because you lack that. On the contrary, we have people that are already springy, but you can tell that they don't have that initial first big umph when they go to jump. They lack the ability to produce the most amount of force from a dead stop or from a stopped position. And so that's what we need to develop with those athletes. Now, those athletes generally need a requirement of general strength to be able to aid this as well. There are other strength variables that we can use, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But generally, if you're trying to improve your trap bar deadlift, your back squat, and your front squat, those are probably gonna be 3 activities that really help you improve your vertical jump right off the get-go so you can increase the amount of force you're putting into the ground each and every single jump. Since you already have that tendon elasticity, that's what you usually rely on to be able to create your vertical jump. The other thing is that when we do our vertical jumps with these athletes, we need to weight these vertical jumps to slow them down to some degree to take that away. So we can do weighted vertical jumps with dumbbells or kettlebells in our hand and doing a pure jump as high as we can, stick the landing, completely reset, and then go again. By doing this is going to help us work on our rate of force development, how much force we can push into the ground with each individual jump. And by giving them a little bit of weight, we're going to actually slow them down a little bit so that they're still having to work on putting that force into the ground much more than if they didn't have the weights on them. The other way that you could do this would be using what's called the dynamic effort method with like a trap bar. Essentially, you would do a trap bar against bands or chains, and you would pull this as fast as you possibly can for 1 to 2 reps, resting 20 to 30 seconds in between each time, and really trying to focus on, again, the maximum amount of force you can put into the ground. And again, that's gonna slow our athlete down from doing just a regular vertical jump or relying on their tendon elasticity, and that's gonna drive your vertical jump up for every single jump that you happen to go do. So figure out which camp you fall into. That's gonna give you an idea of where you need to direct your training program to get the most out of your vertical jump. But at the end of the day, you still need to do both activities, but your bias towards the activities that you're choosing is gonna improve your vertical jump much faster and give you a much bigger return on investment from your training. All right, now let's talk about laying out your training program of how you can improve your vertical jump over, let's say, a 12-week period, which is pretty common for most training programs. When you break up your training program, you want to look at your first 4 weeks, and these generally need to be more strength and hypertrophy related. So this is where you're going to want to focus on things like your back squat, your front squat, your trap bar deadlift. Those are probably going to be your 3 main staple exercises. You can pick which squat variation you personally want, but I would definitely include the trap bar deadlift or the hex bar deadlift in that other training day if you're going to do so. So you have 2 days, one with a squat variation and one with a deadlift variation, and these should be trained for general strength, which means you're probably gonna want to do them for 3 to 5 sets of anywhere from 2 to 5 reps, and this is gonna help you improve your overall strength. Over the course of the month, you're gonna work on trying to improve the amount of weight that you're adding to the bar. You might even decrease your reps as the month goes so that you can continue to push the load and get some progressive overload on those particular activities. Then you're gonna wanna make sure you're still doing some kind of plyometric-based exercise, and this is where it's gonna be a little bit more determinant upon what you need as an athlete. Again, still gotta jump to be able to improve your jumping. So again, if you're that land-locked athlete, then this is where you're gonna wanna maybe do some hurdle jumps or a hurdle jump to a box jump to be able to work on that tendon elasticity, but still focusing on max vertical jumping in your training session. And you can do this for 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps, along either with your squat or prior to your squat. I would usually recommend doing it prior to, so that you can be fresh and get the most out of that particular activity. And then again, if you happen to be that springy based athlete, this is where I would probably implement that weighted vertical jump that we talked about, where you're dead stopping each weight, jumping as high as you can with dumbbells in your hands. When you do this, I recommend not going over absolute maximum 15% of your body weight. So if you happen to be a 150-pound athlete, you're not gonna wanna use more than 15 pounds or maybe 20 pounds, give or take. So you're probably looking at 10s or 8s in each hand and just trying to jump as high as you can each time. Again, the goal is not the max amount of weight that you're using, it's just enough to slow you down so that you have to work on that force development. The second phase is then gonna be focusing more on the strength side and then adding in more plyometrics. So you're gonna pull away from some of your hypertrophy work. So in that first phase, you might've been doing different lunging variations or leg presses or goblet squats, things of that nature in the hypertrophy range of 8 to 12. We're gonna kind of take those away and we're gonna continue to push that strength exercise. And this is where we might actually start to do more triples and singles in our trap bar deadlift or our front squat. So 3 to 6 sets of 3 to 1 reps, ramping up again over the course of the 4-week period, trying to hit new personal bests that you can, but still leaving a little bit of weight in the tank and training smartly. And then we're also then gonna ramp up our ability of our plyometrics. So we're gonna actually increase the total amount of volume. So you're gonna wanna probably pick 2 or 3 different types of jumps that are gonna work best for you. And again, we talked about those landlock variations for people that are already stuck on the floor. They need more hurdle work, so you can do more hurdle jumps. You can also do things that are going to be more reactive based. So you could do depth drops to vertical jumps, starting low, increasing the height of your box over the course of that month. And then you can also add in some different change of direction based stuff as well. So you can do a lateral bound to hurdle hops, so you can still move side to side and still develop that single leg aspect. If you happen to be the opposite, you're already that springy person, we talked about the weighted jumps in the first block. Now what we can actually do is we can continue to do that, but we can now do it from a single leg perspective, or we can actually do it onto a box and then a depth drop, focusing on sticking that landing nice and hard, controlling the weight, and that's gonna teach us how to absorb that force better, so that whenever we take all that away, when we are as a springy athlete, now you're gonna feel even more springy after you absorb those landings. So you're really gonna wanna focus more on depth drops, not trying to actually do a counter movement jump from it. And then you can also even do this from a single leg perspective. You could do split squat jumps, focusing on the intensity of each leg. And again, you're going to make sure you only use 5 to 10 pounds per arm in more cases than not. Really still trying to jump as high as you can each and every single time. In that third training block now, we're gonna do what's a peaking method, or trying to push things to get the most out of your vertical jump. This is where we're gonna see the most progress. And really what I like to do here for these athletes is I either like to use post-activation potentiation, which means we're going to use a big strength movement. So you can keep your front squat, you can keep your trap bar deadlift or your back squat, whichever one you were really using as a driver. Now we're actually gonna decrease the load just a little bit. We wanna be in that 80 to 85% range, so it's still gonna be heavy. And we're still gonna do it for about 2 to 3 reps. We're still gonna try to move that weight though as fast as we possibly can versus trying to move the most amount of weight. So if you know what your best lift was in that second phase, let's say you happen to front squat 225 pounds as your top single, and you still had a little bit left in there, then what you're gonna wanna do is probably go down to 185 for this one and move that for 2 to 3 reps as fast as you possibly can. And then we're gonna pair that with a vertical jump of your choosing, again, based upon how you are as an athlete and what you need. So again, if you're that landlocked athlete, you need more springy stuff. This is where I'm going to recommend we do depth drops to multiple hurdle hops. So 2 to 3 hurdles, step off the box, boom, 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 right over them. We'll do 1 to 2 reps of that, and that's going to basically prepare our body for those vertical jumps. By having the high load, we're now going to have an increased output from our nervous system, and now when we go to jump, we're actually going to get an increase in output neuromuscularly from every single jump that we take, and that's going to help us stimulate new motor unit recruitment, which is then going to help you jump higher in the long run. Again, if you happen to be that really springy athlete, now what you're going to do is you're going to just do a seated box jump as high as you possibly can. So you're just going to keep your feet on the ground, sitting on the box, jump as high as you possibly can, stick your landing on the box. You can do a depth drop if you really wanted to. You can step off the box, and you're going to do that for 2 to 3 reps, really trying to get as high as you possibly can. The other option that we have here is called the French contrast method. This is definitely an advanced training technique. So if you are not what I would consider an intermediate to advanced athlete, if your vertical, is really struggling, this may not be the thing for you, but let's say you've already got a somewhat good vertical jump, 20, 24, 27, maybe 30 inches or more, this approach is really gonna maximize this last 4 weeks. In the French contrast method, you're gonna use 4 exercises all paired together. So just like with our post-activation potentiation, we're gonna pick that strength-based exercise. Then we're gonna pick a body weight or speed-based exercise. Again, you can pick the same one that you probably just used for your post-activation potentiation. But then what we're gonna do is we're actually going to load an exercise a little bit more. So here's where you could do something like a clean pull, to where you're gonna take a light weight, maybe 30, 40%, and you're just gonna clean pull as high as you possibly can. Don't worry about actually catching the clean. We're just gonna go as high as we can, again, for 2 to 3 reps. You could also do a weighted vertical jump here as well in terms of being reactive, make them all reactive in this case. And then you could find another different way. You can do if you're not doing trap bar deadlift, let's say you did a squat, you could take the trap bar deadlift for, again, about 30, 35%, trying to jump as high as you can with that trap bar. That's gonna focus on our speed strength. And then what we're gonna do is then we're basically gonna have an overspeed. So this is gonna usually be a band assisted jump in terms of helping your vertical. You're gonna tie the band to the top of the rack, hold on to it, jump as high as you can every single rep for about 3 to 4 reps, maybe 5 if you really wanted to, and really trying to stay as springy and limit the amount of time that you're actually on the ground. So you're essentially gonna go heavy, light, a little bit heavier than what you did from the previous exercise, but definitely lighter than the first exercise. Again, that 30 to 40% range seems to be kind of the sweet spot in my opinion in terms of your loading. And then you're gonna do an overspeed. So heavy, light, slightly heavy, very light or assisted, and that's called the French contrast method. And this is really going to stimulate your nervous system in terms of your output and how much force you're gonna be able to put into the ground. And you're gonna get the neuromuscular reactive piece from this, and you will probably see your vertical jump soar after doing this for that last 4-week block. Now, before you go to try to implement this French contrast method or post-activation potentiation, understand that this is considered a quote-unquote peaking aspect of training. This is not something you should do year-round, as your body will adapt to that sort of training and you're not gonna get the return on investment from it if you just continue to do it year-round. Again, training should be phasic in structure, and generally you're gonna want more of a strength and hypertrophy based area, and then you're gonna actually add in a little bit more plyometrics in this case, and then use that peaking thing. And you could do this basically over the course of the year, and you'll be able to run through this 3 times and then allow for some breaks as needed. I would say you want to use this peaking aspect if you're using it during a competitive type season, going into your most important games or competitions. That way you're maximizing your vertical jump when it technically matters most. But if you're just in general trying to improve your vertical jump, start with your strength and hypertrophy work. Don't neglect that. While you may not see the most gains immediately from your vertical jump, it's going to set the foundation for the next 2 training blocks to be able to give you that baseline of strength and hypertrophy to accelerate the plyometrics and acceleration-based work that you're going to do in those training blocks. And that's gonna give you the biggest return on your investment at the end of the 12 weeks. And you should see, like I mentioned, anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of improvement over that 12 weeks, which is a pretty big deal. Obviously, the more that you do this, you're not gonna be able to continue to always see those results. You're gonna have to mix things up just a little bit and be able to tinker with the way that you're training, but you should be able to see at least some kind of progress every 3 to 6 months by doing this, depending upon your training age, to be able to maximize your vertical jump. All right, that's gonna wrap up today's video on improving your vertical jump and the way that you can go about this. I hope you took away just one way to help you improve your vertical jump. And if you did, do me a favor, smash that like button, leave a comment, let me know if this helped you or what you like to implement into your vertical jump based training programs to get the most out of your vertical jump. And more importantly, just stay patient and stay on top of the way that you're training and keep putting a good quality effort. And you're gonna find that your vertical jump will follow so long as you continue to follow these principles to be able to maximize your vertical jump in whatever sport it is that you do. So again, I appreciate you checking out today's video. Do me a favor, smash that like button, and I'll see you at the next video.